Hello and welcome to the Rare Record Room. I've been collecting vinyl for around 40 years now. I was buying records in the late 1970s and during the 80s through to the 90s and beyond, when records were no longer in vogue and proved rather difficult to find. My collection is mostly guitar-based music from the 50s through to the 90s, covering rock and roll, through rhythm and blues, beat, psychedelia, rock, soul, funk, punk and new wave, pop and Britpop. It comprises around 2,500 records, mostly LPs, although there's a few hundred 7-inch singles, EPs and 12-inch singles. Most original pressings or unusual versions, and my aim in these videos is to show some of the more interesting that I have, or at least the ones I find interesting. If you do too, please feel free to hit the like button and check out my other videos. Today I'm looking at the early recordings of the gritty British rhythm and blues band The Pretty Things. Formed by the Sidcup art students Phil May and Dick Taylor in early 1963, they played a harder edged blues rock than many of their contemporaries. Guitarist Dick Taylor had been in the first incarnation of the Rolling Stones, then known as Little Boy Blue and the Blue Boys, which comprised of Taylor, his friend Mick Jagger, fellow Sidcup art student Keith Richards, and others. Taylor, Jagger and Richards were recruited for a band by the slide guitarist Brian Jones in June 1962, which Jones then named Rollin' Stones, no G. Dick Taylor left at the end of 1962 and formed The Pretty Things with vocalist Phil May. The lineup completed by the bassist John Stax, rhythm guitarist Brian Pendleton and Viv Prince on the drums. Prince had joined them from Carter Lewis and the Southerners, a band which would soon morph into the Ivy League. The Pretty Things were signed to the Fontana label and their first 3 singles charted in the UK, one of which, entitled Don't Bring Me Down, reached the top 10, being their highest singles chart position. Their debut LP, simply titled The Pretty Things, is a mix of rhythm and blues and cover versions plus 3 original songs. The material is hard-edged blues rock, which would later be termed freak beat, and the album opens with Roadrunner, written by Bo Diddley, and includes covers of tracks by the likes of Chuck Berry, Tampa Red, Jimmy Reed, and another by Bo Diddley, Keep Your Big Mouth Shut. The album closes with a song written by Willie Dixon called Pretty Thing, from which the band took their name. The track Honey I Need, co-written by guitarist Dick Taylor, was released as a single from the album in March 1965, peaking at number 13 in the British charts. The LP is on the typical silver and black Fontana label design, released in mono only with the catalogue number TL5239. It's a textured label which states recording first published 1965, and the rim text carries an all rights reserved notice. This one is housed in a die-cut plain paper inner sleeve with a polythene liner. The LP cover is a front laminated flip back, but with a paste-over slick to the rear, which carries the sleeve notes and partially hides the flip-back turn-ins. The manufacturer of the sleeve is not given a credit. The spine displays the LP title and the catalogue number, but not the record company name. This has always been a fairly desirable album and is now quite elusive in nice condition, probably due to the type of audience that would play it originally. As such, any decent example that survived is going to be pretty valuable, and nice copies in the guide or mint copies are currently listed at £150. This debut LP was the band's most successful in purely commercial terms, reaching a credible top 5 slot upon its release in March 1965, in a particularly strong chart week featuring established superstars like the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, the Kinks and Bob Dylan. Following this album, their rather eccentric drummer Viv Prince grew increasingly unreliable, likely due to his greater consumption of drink and drugs, and was ousted from the band just before their second album, Get the Picture, was released in late '65. This LP included several different musicians, including the session guitarist Jimmy Page, who also received a writing credit on the track You Don't Believe Me. Its rather haphazard nature unfortunately translated into a poor reception, and the LP Get the Picture failed to chart. This concludes my brief look at the early recordings of the Pretty Things. That's your lot for this episode. I hope you enjoyed the content. If you did like the video, please make sure you subscribe for more. Thanks for watching. See you next time.